Az in morge parvade vandiv zad, chegui chegune barayat nejad. And so it was that Zal, son of Lord Sam of Sistan, from the line of Fredun, the hero king, became betrothed to Princess Rudabeh of Kabul, from the line of Zahak, the demon king. And in doing so, the two had broken an ancient law that had forbidden that ever the line of Zahak and the line of Fredun should ever be united in marriage. And when news of this betrothal reached the ear of the Pacha Manucher, the great King Manucher, he became so enraged that this ancient law had been broken, that he commanded at once that his vast armies descend upon the city of Kabul. And at that time, within its walls, there was Zal, close to his beloved Rudabeh, and he saw the vast army surrounding the city, commanded by his own father, threatening the city of his true love Rudabeh. And so fearlessly, he left the gates of the city, made his way to the tents where his father, Lord Sam, had pitched his tents. And he went before his father and said this: Pedaram, my dear father, long ago when you found me in the wilderness, you promised me that you would never refuse anything that I asked of you. And so today I ask you that you command your armies to retreat from this city of Kabul, which is after all a city of peace. But Lord Sam looked sadly at his son, and he said this: Pesaram, my dear son, I remember well what I had promised you, but I am here at the commands of my king, the King Manucher, and I, after all, have to do my duty. And when Zal heard these words come from the lips of his own father, he went himself before the Pacha, the great King Manucher. And on that day, when he was led into the throne room where the king was holding his divan, his assembly, there was Zal, fearlessly going before the golden throne of the king, fearlessly, for his heart was brimming with love. And he spoke before the king, saying these words: Manucher, Pacha Manucher, O great King Manucher, I come here unannounced. I come here unannounced with a request that you withdraw your armies. You withdraw your armies surrounding the city of Kabul. For after all, the city of Kabul is a city of peace. And when the king saw this young man appear to him fearlessly, unannounced, he had never seen such a thing. Never in his life did he ever remember anyone having the audacity to ask him something. And the surprise of that moment left him speechless. He did not know what to do. And then, after a few moments' silence, he turned to that young man Zal, son of Lord Sistan, saying this: Young man, What you ask me today is indeed very serious. It is a grave matter that I must consider among my advisors. You will give me a day to consider this, and tomorrow, young man, you will have your answer. And so at once the king withdrew from his throne room, and he called before him his advisors, his 5 Mobad, his 5 priests. And there they were, the 5 Mobad, before their king. Each of them was an old man that had eyes that were sunken and surrounded by large black circles. And the king spoke to all the 5 Mobad that were gathered before him, and he asked them whether he should give his permission to allow this marriage that had broken that ancient law. The 5 Mobad consulted among themselves, murmuring in each other's ear. And after some time, one of them turned to the king and said this: Your Majesty, you must allow this marriage, for from this marriage will come a son who will be the greatest Pahlavan, the greatest hero that your kingdom has ever known. But we must be sure that this young man is ready for such a marriage, that this young man is ready to be the father of such a son. Very well, said the king. There is only one way to test whether he is ready to take on this role. We will bring him to the Maidan, to the playing field, and there we will test his prowess with sword and lance. But the old men shook their heads gravely, saying this: Your Majesty, after all, it is not this way that we can test that he is ready. We must test his wisdom, for it is wisdom that makes a father out of the man. It is wisdom that makes a father out of the man. Wisdom! Wisdom! Cried out the king. Why do you talk to me of such unsubstantial things? How can we test this wisdom, after all, that you speak of? Your Majesty, returned one of them, Your Majesty, there is one way to test this wisdom. Look into each of our eyes. Do you see how sunken they are? Do you see how each of our eyes are surrounded with countless black circles? Have you ever asked yourself what the reason of this was? The reason is simple. For each of us here is plagued by a dream that keeps us awake all night, a dream that does not allow us a single moment's sleep. We will have this young man interpret each of our dreams. And if he does so successfully, indeed he will have the wisdom that makes a father out of the man. And so the king assented that the next day the young man Zal would be brought before the 5 Mobad, the 5 priests, and they would test whether he could interpret their dreams. And there was the young man that day, and the 5 old men before him. And the first Mobad, the first priest, came forward, saying this, young man, I have a dream. And in my dream, I see two horses, one black and one white. And the black horse is forever chasing the white horse, coming closer and closer. But the black horse can never overtake the white horse. What does this mean? Tell me my dream, young man, so that I may be released from it. And then the second Mobad came forward, and speaking to the young man said this, young man, I have a dream. And in my dream, I see a man holding a sickle, walking into a field of tall grass. Some of the grass is verdant and green, but the other grass is brown and withered. And yet this man with the sickle, without giving a second thought, cuts down the grass that is fresh and green, as well as the grass that is withered and brown. What is the meaning of this? Tell me my dream, young man, so that I may be released from it. And then the third Mobad came forward, saying this, young man, I have a dream. And in my dream, I see myself in the garden of the Pacha, the garden of the king. And in that garden there grow 12 trees, no more, no less. And each tree has just 30 branches, no more, no less. And yet the king's gardener is not troubled in the least with this. What does this mean? Tell me my dream, young man, so that I may be released from it. And then the fourth Mobad came forward, saying this, young man, I have a dream. And in my dream, I see 2 trees growing from the depths of the ocean floor, rising high above it. On one tree, all the branches are verdant and green, budding flowers and fruit. And within the branches of that tree, there is a bright red bird with feathers golden and radiant. Beside that tree is the other tree, but this tree, the branches are barren and bare. But then all of a sudden that bright bird flies from one tree to the other, and the tree he leaves, that tree sheds all its leaves and blossoms and becomes barren and bare. But the tree that the bird flies to and rests on its branches, that tree begins to bud, and its branches become verdant with leaves and full of life with blossoms and fruit. What does this mean? Tell me my dream, young man, so that I may be released from it. And then the fifth Mobad came forward, saying these words, young man, I have a dream. And in my dream, I see a land that is verdant and green, A bright blue brook flows through it, and all is alive and pleasant. But beside that land is another land, a land that is barren and bare, a land that is covered in thorns. And I see a group of people walking into that barren land, the thorns tearing at their knees and thighs. And forever weeping these people are as they walk deeper and deeper into that land of thorns. What does this mean? Tell me my dream, young man, so that I may be released from it. And at that moment, Zal stepped forward. He turned to the first Mobad and he said this: "You are my elder, but I am your father. In your dream, the black horse is after all the night, and the white horse is the day. And night always chases after the day, comes close to it, but can never overtake it, for the day is always one day ahead. Thus it was, and forever will be. And so let the moonbeams wipe our tears, the tears we shed for the dark night, so that we can welcome the morning sun with clean faces." And then Zal turned to the second Mobad, and this is what he said: "You are my elder, but I am your father. In your dream, the man carrying the sickle after all is no one other than death. And death cuts down the young and old without giving it a second thought. Thus it was, and forever will be. And so let the living grass weep for their fallen comrades, for the fallen grass knows better, for they know that death is nothing other, nothing more than a messenger from eternity." And then Zal turned to the third Mobad, saying this: "You are my elder, but I am your father. In your dream, the 12 trees that grow in the garden of the king are nothing more than the 12 months of the year, no more, no less. And the 30 branches that grow from each tree, what are they after all but the 30 days of each month? No more, no less. Thus it was, and forever will be. And yet the king's gardener is not troubled in the least, for the king's gardener knows that each day has a blossom that is all its own." And then Zal turned to the fourth Mobad, saying this: "You are my elder, but I am your father. In your dream, the tree that is covered with leaves and blossoms, the tree that harbors that bright bird, is the part of the year that is the spring when everything blossoms and blooms. And the tree beside it is the winter, when everything withers and dies. And that bright bird is after all the sun, the sun that goes from one part of the year to the other, transforming one while leaving the other to die. Thus it was, and forever will be. But we must all remember, after all, that when everything flourishes, never to be proud, never to be arrogant. But when everything perishes, never, never to despair. And then Zal turned to the last Mobad, saying this: "You are my elder, but I am your father. In your dream, the land that is green, the land that flourishes, is the land of eternity, the land of our own promise. And the land beside it, the land covered in thorns, is the world that we make for ourselves, the world of our own pettiness, our own selfishness, our own greed. Thus it was, and forever will be. But as we wander in this barren land of our own making, all we have to remember is that land of eternity, that land of promise, is right behind us. And if we want to look upon it, all we have to do is just turn around." And with those words, Zal finished what he had to say. And he looked into the faces of those 5 Mobad, and he saw that in each of them their eyes were welling with tears. And as the tears ran down their cheeks, the tears washed away all those black circles that surrounded their eyes. And at once they turned to the king Manucher, crying out, Your Majesty, this young man indeed is ready to marry. This man is indeed ready to be the father of this great Pahlavan to come. He is indeed ready, for he has the wisdom to be a father. He has the wisdom to know that he has found his father. He has found his father in himself.